You're listening to Legacy Lawyers, hosted by Michael Haslam and Nathan Croxford.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Legacy Lawyers podcast. This is Nathan, one of your hosts, and today I have with me the one and only Taylor Stone.
Yeah, good
I was
thing,
going to
one and
introduce,
only.
since we're going to be talking about veterans a little bit today, I was going to introduce you with your rank, but I don't know what it is.
Yep, Sergeant First Class still, and I'm sure everybody else who's listening to this and knows what that rank is, they're also surprised. So yeah, Sergeant First Class.
Sergeant First Class Taylor Stone. And we have a special guest today, but I'm going to go ahead and let Taylor introduce our special guest.
Certainly. And I don't think I'll give you all the accolades that you deserve, but this is former Marine Ross Mitchell, and of the other stellar things that he's done in his life, the one that we're bringing him on the show for, which we're bringing on for all of them, but the one that we're bringing him on for today is he's one of the managers, in fact, the president of the board for this nonprofit organization, read backwards, Leaps of Hope.
It's actually, it looks good to me. I can see it.
Yeah, right. he's working out just to make sure that it can, it can spread across his chest like that.
I'm trying to look like this guy right here one day.
There you go. Exactly. This version looks like I ate that version, honestly.
Well, for all of you that can't see us, don't worry, you're better for it. At least when it comes to me and the other host, Taylor Stone. I'll just speak for myself. It's better off that you can't see me.
Sure.
So the reason that first of all, what I want to do is thank both of you for your service to our country. I'm always honored when I get to work with veterans in any capacity, and neither of you will ever receive the appropriate amount of accolades that you deserve for what you've done and what you continue to do for our country and for the veterans of our country. So thank you for that.
Thank you for your support, man.
The kind of the subject matter today is going to be nonprofits and specifically C3 public charities and maybe a little bit on private foundations. And the reason we wanted to talk about this is because I think we hear a lot about this. There are a fair number of these out there, probably are being contacted from time to time from nonprofit organizations. Taylor, tell us just generally what a nonprofit is, and maybe specifically why somebody like Ross would want to utilize that. And then I'm going to just give some of the features and a little bit of the background on how they get created and so forth, and then we'll dive into Ross's specific story.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I love that Ross is here because he is living, breathing example of somebody who you would think is maybe a little more atypical is putting together a 501(c)(3). I think whenever we hear about, I put together, there's a charity, we think, wow, it's a multi-million-dollar organization that's, doing all these things, Doctors Without Borders, that kind of a thing. But there are still some people who are kind of at a smaller level who are still doing incredible good for people. And they're the ones that would put together a type of organization like this. And they're ones that, again, it has a charitable cause. There's many causes that you can have, and I'm not going to get into the full list, but it's this idea of trying to give back to the community. And if that's the kind of organization that you're wanting to put together, there's some opportunities to make it into what's called a 501(c)(3). And that, of course, is a section out of the Internal Revenue Code, which allows for a charitable donation status for any donations that come into that organization. And so again, it's like the name says, that it's not necessarily for profit, that everything is a majority of the funds that are coming in. And in fact, it has to be a substantial majority of those funds coming in are going to the cause of that organization. Now, of course, Ross here, you'd imagine, well, is he not being paid or anything like that? There's the idea that, he doesn't have to necessarily receive any kind of a wage or anything like that, but he can receive just a minimal amount of funds just so then, to compensate for the time that he's dedicating to what he's doing. Mm-hmm. But this good man, I know that he is definitely on the bottom end of that, and he's trying to balance that out. Ross has set his organization up. Like you said, they went live where they got their charitable status from the federal government about just coming up almost on a year ago. And it's really this balance to find out, okay, well, how much of my time am I dedicating to this? What does the actual cost look like? And that's really kind of something that we're going to be able to talk about. But this is why somebody would set up something like this. We've had an opportunity also to set one up for somebody who is wanting to do kind of an arts council in their community and set up fun runs and those kinds of things. I mean, these are the types of organizations, again, that somebody at maybe at a smaller scale would have an opportunity to do so. And so great opportunity to give back, great opportunity to really just enrich the life that you're living in your community.
So Ross, maybe just the elevator summary of tell us about your organization and specifically what you're doing, just briefly. We'll get into it in more detail in just a minute.
So at Leaps of Hope, we empower veterans, first responders, survivors of child abuse, and as of most recently, thanks to Voyant Legal for helping us with our business structure, we also support children of fallen heroes as well. And we empower them through the sport of skydiving. Essentially, what we have is we have two programs. We have the Tandem program, which is basically to introduce you to skydiving on your first jump, just to kind of show you, hey, what is this about? What are you going to feel? Get you to the drop zone, show you what the community's like. It's all an experience, not just your skydive, the whole thing from the ground all the way up and back down. And then we have our AFF program, which is our Accelerated Freefall program. Accelerated Freefall is the official program that you go through to become a solo skydiver, not a licensed skydiver. It's your first 7 jumps with instructors, with the most amount of formal instruction. You continue to have instruction, but it's your first 7 jumps, and they're the most expensive. It takes 25 jumps to get your license. Those first 7 jumps is about 60 to 70% of the overall cost to get your A license, right? And we provide scholarships to select individuals to actually come out and be able to do that process free of charge, essentially. And not only that, depending on the individual, we may even pay for the whole thing. It just depends on their financial situation and what we can do at the time. But there's a lot of things that we do. That's just the main 2 programs right there. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Cool, to say the least, man.
Cool to say the least. Okay, cool. So then just so that we kind of set the groundwork for public charities as a general matter before we get into some of the specifics. So as you said, Taylor, it's a tax exempt organization. You have to go through a pretty rigorous and depending on the size, because I know that in Ross's case, you guys were able to do a simplified version of the IRS 1023 form, which is the form that we help our clients prepare to ask the IRS for the nonprofit status. Because as everyone knows, not every organization, in fact, most organizations don't have tax exempt status. So it's only granted to organizations that are providing service and community support. I mean, there is a wide range. I know that I've worked on a couple of 1C3s that were related to recovery from substance abuse. I've worked on one that was in the trades, promoting trades to young people that are coming out of high school, trying to close the gap on the number of retiring people that we have working in the trades and getting that next generation in. The 1023 is the full version is a very rigorous tax form, and it requires that you provide some serious detail about what it is that you're doing, how you intend to raise funds, the methods that you're going to use, how you intend to use those funds. How do you intend to avoid conflicts of interest? So people that are involved with the public charity, they're not allowed to have it's a weird word, inurement, but it's a benefit. They're not allowed to experience private benefits as a result of the public monies that are coming in. So,
which kind of makes sense. I mean, we get that, especially in the circumstance where we have kind of Ross here. We don't want him, and as he's trying to do all of these great things for veterans, we don't want to think, oh, but also he has his own pilot's license and he's flying guys up and he's getting all this, benefit from him, and he's the only one that flies these guys, that kind of a thing, right? We don't want that just to necessarily be the only thing that's happening at the same time, right? We want to make sure that it really is going to that main benefit. And that's really all that the IRS is kind of looking for. And that's what we found, although daunting, even the full version of the 1023, as long as you're kind of making sure that you're hitting those wickets, right? That you're usually fine. And it's really kind of making sure that you're setting up you're setting up this organization in such a way that it is still fully charitable, right? That you're not doing anything kind of on the shady side, you could say.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can pay staff, you can pay
Sure.
officers, you can pay members of the board, but obviously there's oversight in terms of what those payments look like. They have to be within the bounds of the rules that the IRS has set in order for that organization to continue to have that public or the nonprofit status. These are also different from other organizations in that there's no private ownership of the entity. The entity is actually owned by the public to the point where if we ever were to dissolve or wind down a public charity, if any funds that had been raised that weren't used by the time they shuttered this public charity would have to be either donated to another charitable organization that has 501c3 status or directly to the government for charitable purposes. So the benefits, I think we'll get into a little bit here, but it's a lot easier to it's a lot easier to get people to donate money to a cause if they know that there's some boundaries in terms of what that money can be used for. If they have an assurance by donating to a public charity that has received that certification from the IRS, they have an assurance that the money is being used for the mission. It is being used for the charitable purpose, that it's not lining the pockets of individuals or corporations. And we've kind of all seen charities that have gone bad where, that can happen, but it's fairly rare. And I think those things get shut down pretty quickly, and there's some serious consequences for anybody that abuses this structure. But in terms of access to funding, there's a tax-deductible benefit for anybody who donates to one of these organizations, and it's a little you get a better tax deduction when it's an actual 501c3 public charity like Ross's organization versus private foundations. And if you want to learn more about the difference between public charities and private foundations, contact us or contact another attorney that's well-versed in these types of organizations, and make sure that it gets set up right to begin with, that it's run properly throughout, because we want to see these public charities thrive. We want to see people get the benefits of the service and the support that they provide to the communities.
Right. Because I don't think that we want to promote a system in which we have these good people who are trying to really make a difference where they're at in their soul communities, the groups that they're associated with, or in their personal communities where they live, anything like that. We don't want to encourage a system where all of a sudden there is this idea that, donating to these organizations just means I am lining those pockets. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And also, actually, at this time, Nathan, you talking about either coming to ourselves or coming to another attorney about this. I think there's probably time to put in that disclaimer. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are attorneys. We work in estate planning, small business planning, and we also obviously work in the nonprofit sector a little bit by helping our clients form these types of entities and structures. But the purpose of our podcast is not to provide legal advice today. We are in the edutainment business, as I like to say, when it comes to the podcasting. So we're here to inform. And today we're also here to kind of shamelessly plug Leaps of Hope for Ross, give him an opportunity to tell everyone, because I'm sure, if you're not a veteran, you know one. And if you're not some of the other types of individuals that Ross helps, you probably know somebody that could benefit from this. So with that, Taylor and Ross, tell us kind of how you guys ended up connecting and what the mission was and why you thought that this 1C3 would be the best structure, and then kind of how that's turned out.
Oh, for sure. Let me at least start on kind of the first end. I know that Ross reached out to us. I know that he had been shopping around for other attorneys who could maybe help him out in putting together something like this. And you already had the idea that you want to do a 501c3 when
Hmm.
we chatted,
Oh yeah.
right? And so why did you actually settle on us again? I like the idea that it was settled. He settled for this face. My
Uh,
wife is listening. She knows all about that.
you know, he's uh he's being humble right now, but it is actually the complete opposite. I refuse to settle. I refuse to settle with another attorney. For me personally, being on multiple types of teams in the past, I understand that that team operates very well when there's actual belief and genuine care for the mission at hand, no matter what it is, if it's a nonprofit or a law firm, you name it. And I've been around the block enough to be able to see on someone's face when they're actually believing in what I'm doing and also when they're just doing their job, which is okay as well. I went through multiple attorneys, kind of self-vetting them myself just to find, who can actually help me and believe in this. And one thing was missing from all of them, and that was one, having a similar background, relatability, and two, being able to kind of look at them and kind of see that, wow, I'm speaking to a very genuine person right now.
Uh-huh.
And that's no dig on them. It's just maybe their just heart wasn't in the mission, you know? And this mission's cool, like no one can say how, there's no one that can say that jumping out of planes isn't awesome. Even if they think it's stupid, they're still like, man, that's
Yeah, I agree.
something.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there's a genuine interest on why you would ever do that, and it goes deeper. And
Mhm.
he had that interest, and Jesse had that interest, and it was very easy for me to
Yeah.
see when I came here. And not only that, I mean, they were just so accommodating in so many ways, ways I won't even dive into because there's just too many ways that they were accommodating. But I refuse to. I kind of wish, like, I don't know a lot about law. It sounds like the estate planning and business planning. I wish they did it all because I would recommend everyone to come to Voyant because of
Geez, shameless plug. We did not pay Ross for this. Okay,
well,
just let's make sure this is clear.
it's just because like I call it as I see it. If
Sure.
if you're doing unethical things and you don't want to line your pockets, that happens in a lot of ways other than a 501c3. If you have a genuine interest in helping human beings, then I'll get behind you 100% in that. Because whether it doesn't matter what your business is, if you're trying to help human beings, that's the overall mission, and that's what we do. That's what he does, you
Yeah.
do, and that's what I do. That's the
Cool.
mission. You just have a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
So,
So
Thank you for that, man.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool
thanks.
to
Thanks
say.
for that.
Yeah.
So what was it before you started shopping for attorneys? Tell us about your background. Tell us about the population that you're trying to help with this organization and
Yeah.
kind of how that's going.
So the first three demographics were survivors of child abuse, veterans, and first responders. And the reason why I wanted to hit that is because I relate to all three of them. I came from a broken home in Pittsburgh with parents who are doing well now, but back then they were both struggling. One with addiction, one trying to support a family, pretty abusive, upbringing in a lot of ways. And I struggled a lot growing up, and I didn't know it at the time. I felt that how I was feeling was normal, even though I didn't fit in with anyone. And then kind of came this process of trying to be better than who I thought I was. I still don't feel like I value myself in a lot of ways. So I pursued things that were hard in order to give myself hopefully more value. So I went to the Marine Corps Infantry, and I was like, I need to find out who I am. And I learned a lot about myself there, and I learned a lot about being on a team, being mission driven, but also genuine sense of selflessness and, having a lack of self preservation in the pursuit of loyalty. It meant a lot to me to see what people would do for one another, regardless of what they were sacrificing of their own well being.
Mhm.
And then I came back to Pittsburgh. And when I came back to Pittsburgh, I realized I was still a kid and there was a lot of things I didn't process and I didn't know what was going on. And there's a lot of trauma there. I couldn't understand it. I would have panic attacks pulling up to my house and I had no idea why. So, me being me, I, in an unhealthy way, tried to continue to help people in hopes of helping figure out what was going on with me because it would make me feel better helping others. So I became a paramedic and I worked in one of the highest crime ridden areas in the Pittsburgh area, and I got a lot of experience. working with addicts, working with, especially women who were addicts was very triggering for me in a lot of ways. I would see my mother, I'd see me, I'd see my sister, with a lot of these houses we were going into. And I got to a level of burnout very quickly within a couple years. And we
More
were just, it was
trauma, right? More trauma.
more trauma and not knowing how to process it. And, even myself, I started to use substances in ways, and that delayed my processing. It really did. I've been sober for a while now, and
Congratulations, man.
thank
That's
you,
awesome.
man. And it's been the best thing for me because I can figure things out now for myself, but I just numb myself. And through everything that I was experiencing, the trauma, the bad things we were seeing, and the substance abuse, I felt nothing. I felt like a shell of a man. And one night I had a call that wasn't the worst call I ever had, but it kind of set me over the edge. And this led to my skydiving journey, which is weird. It's a weird segue, but it was a welfare check, and it ended up being a pediatric homicide. And
Oh,
I
God.
tried to get this young girl out of this house multiple times. I could have called child services on any one of the kids that I treated in that area, but I tried to get this little girl out of that house many times. I have a collection of no action taken letters from child services that I keep just to remind myself where I come from and also who's still there right now. There's a lot of kids who are still in that area. So anyway, I had a rough time that night. I did something pretty unprofessional that I'm not very proud of, and I got sent home that night. I was angry. I was very angry. That young girl's father ended up taking her life. She was just 8 years old.
Jeez.
So I went home, I got sent home, and I stayed up all night, and I felt very responsible for what happened to that kid. I know I'm not responsible for it, but I felt guilty by omission in some way. And so I got to a point where I never thought I would be. And, these thoughts in my head were just so intrusive. And I had these ideations that I didn't want to be here anymore. And I stayed up all night, and it felt very relieving. I had a plan. I had a way I wanted to go about it, but I just stayed up. And then my wife woke up. And, I don't give her enough credit. She saved my life just as much as skydiving did. But she looked at me and said, "Hey, how long have you been home?" And I lied. And I said, "Oh, I've been home just a little bit. I've been home for 4 hours. I just didn't want to wake her up, you know?" And so essentially, she said, "I love you. I'll see you when I get home." I said, "I'll see you when you get home." Made my wife a promise and try and keep it. I saw Black Rifle Coffee. I was surfing the web. I'm just trying to get out of my head for a little bit. And I saw Black Rifle Coffee, and I'm actually friends with a few of these guys now. I saw them skydiving out in Eloy. And I saw a couple of these guys, their landing, they were struggling with their landings a little bit, smacking their butts off the ground. It was very enjoyable to watch, and I was like, you know what, man, I don't know what else to do. Why not? It's a Wednesday, a weekday at 8 a.m. I haven't slept all night.
Let's go jump out of a plane, man.
And I was like, you know what, dude, I'm just going to go do it. So I get to the drop zone. I get to Skydive, Pennsylvania. And I remember getting suited up and walking to the plane. There's this guy, his name's Kush. I kept calling him Ralph. I don't know why. And we're walking to the plane. I have no idea who this guy is. He's like 60 years old. Sorry, Kush, maybe 50. I don't know. He's just a crusty tandem instructor. And I'm about to attach myself to him, and we're about to go out of a plane. But I remember walking up and just still feeling nothing, just nothing, and you're about to jump out of a plane, you should be feeling something. But it kind of just makes me realize just how rough of a situation that I was in.
Yeah.
So we get up, we start going up to altitude, and I'm still feeling nothing, and this is weird, Something kicks in at a certain point. You realize that about 2 minutes, I'm in the smallest plane I've ever been in.
I'm going to jump out of this plane.
I'm attached to a stranger, and I'm about to jump out of this plane. And then that's where being present comes into play. And the things that we thrive off of, people who come from trauma, we learn to operate in areas of high stress or fear or anxiety. It becomes normal for us. Even though it doesn't feel good, it's familiar. And then the door opens, and it's loud. It's so loud. And then your sensories are just, they're going off all over the place. And you're looking out, and you cannot comprehend how high you are.
Yeah.
Like, your depth perception doesn't work the same because you're just too high,
Yeah.
And next thing you know, like at that point, you throw your legs over the edge of the door. You feel this nice, strong, strapping man or woman behind you about to push you out. And then everything that happened the night before and everything that happened as a kid, things that happened in the Marine Corps just disappeared
Gone.
in that moment. I was fully present for the first time in a long time, and I wasn't thinking about anything, and I was happy, and we didn't even leave the plane yet. But as soon as you leave that plane, no one can prepare you for that type of exhilaration and joy that you are experiencing. For that 45 seconds of free fall, you are filled with joy and you are free. You are absolutely free in that moment. You have to give up some sense of control. You have to put your trust in someone you don't know, another human being. And you have to do something that in your head might end your life, even though it's not. You're going to be
But your
okay.
body is screaming to you that that's what's happening.
And
It really is.
like I took Taylor on one, but
He sure did. He sure did, you guys. And it was all of that.
yeah, what we're doing is, and we're going to conduct some research to publish here at some point. We believe we're retranslating trauma. When you get to the edge of that door, the sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight response activates, and it's the same nervous system that activates in a traumatic event, at a high profile traffic stop, a crashing patient, the first RPG that went over your head, or maybe when you get that call and saying your dad or mom isn't coming home. It's the same thing. It's the same physiological response. Maybe not the same emotional response, but physiologically, the dilated pupils, the high blood pressure, the hyper awareness, that sinking feeling in your stomach, we're giving that to you again.
You
But
can feel that adrenaline flood your system. And in a lot of cases, that's been a very negative feeling. But in this case, not the polar opposite.
We're
Right.
retranslating it. Exactly. And then so I did that skydive and I quit my job literally that day. I walked into my boss. I said, "Hey, I'm done." Yeah, that was an interesting moment right there. Yeah,
That's
I
so
quit my
cool.
job. Yeah, I just quit that day. And then a month later, I moved out to Utah and I started jumping full time. And now I'm an instructor. I'm a videographer. I'm about to be a tandem instructor here in a month. And thanks to Taylor, like I got to a place because of skydiving. I got to a place where I was
Yeah.
felt whole again, and I felt like I was doing what was best for me and not what I thought was expected of me as a servant. And I've got to a point where I wanted to give back, and I felt like I could give back. I felt like I had enough in my tank now to give some back again. And service comes in many ways,
Mhm.
and it's cool how you can throw your little
Yeah,
twist on
for
it.
sure.
But
Yeah.
this is how we threw our twist on it.
Yeah, I think yours is a good example of like we're only limited by our imagination probably in terms of the different ways that we could use these structures and organizations because, I think a lot of people think of, like you said, Doctors Without Borders or
Mhm.
things like that. But to
Yeah.
say, hey, we're going to put together an organization that helps people process trauma by jumping out of an airplane with a parachute. That's
Yeah.
so unique and it's so cool. And I mean, the way that you've just described it, the reasons that it came about, it took a particular type of person who'd been through particular things
Mhm.
and who'd been able to come out of it on the other side. I'm so glad that your wife made you promise to see her in the morning because now look at all the people you're helping. Tell us more about the people that you're helping and what it does for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, so in 6 months, I'll just give you some three stats. We've raised $30,000, and we spent a good bit of that on 15 tandem skydives, and we even licensed one individual. And we didn't think that was possible because that's our most expensive program, but kind of like, hey, let's do it. Why not? This
Mhm.
is what we're here to do. I'll give you one instance. I took a young man, and I'm actually taking him to get his license here in April. We're doing a retreat in Tampa, Florida. We paid for their flights, paid for their lodging, and we're paying for their entire A license. 10 days of constant jumping for these people.
Which just for our audience and one of the hosts who has no idea, but what are we talking about the cost to jump,
Sure.
get to the point where you can jump solo and then
Mhm.
license? What kind of
So
dollars?
in order to guarantee success, we put you in the wind tunnel and get you training in there. The wind
Okay.
tunnel is very similar to skydiving. It's and a lot like I train in the wind tunnel weekly, so I can go to the sky and use those skills in the sky. But it's expensive. An hour is around $850 in the tunnel. So we put them
Wow.
in for at least 20 minutes. And if they need more, we'll give them more. But it's cheaper to do the tunnel than to fail a skydive. AFF in general, the entire A license can range from $3,500 to $4,500,
Okay.
depending on the drop
Mhm.
zone,
And
right?
that's all the jumps, that's everything together, all the training,
hmm
all that stuff.
And
Right.
that's if you pass every single jump.
Yeah.
We expect you to fail a jump. I failed a jump, I failed a couple of jumps. We don't expect this to be easy. So yeah, that's the cost if you get through the whole thing. But the tunnel helps with that. A tandem skydive is around $300 to $400, depending on if we get video for you and so on and so forth.
It's
Yeah.
worth it. The video's worth it. Just
Oh.
putting it out there. Shameless plug. Skydive Utah. Yeah, it's worth it, guys.
Oh yeah. I think I flew your video. Did I fly your video? I'm not sure.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I was on the
So-
ground.
You were on the ground.
I
Yeah,
was on the
exactly.
ground,
You were
that's
there
right.
to catch us. That's
Yeah,
what
I
it was.
got photos. This man, he's on the website now, so I don't think he
Awesome.
knows.
Yeah, I'm not. That might be a deterrent. You can go to the website regardless that I'm on the website.
What's the web address for people that want to check that out?
Leapsofhope.org. Leaps plural of hope.org. Yeah.
A minute ago, I was wondering if you're making a joke saying that it's cheaper to spend some time in the wind tunnel than to fail a jump. I wondered if that meant failing a jump means it's all over. Then you said, and I was
Well
like,
said.
yeah, I think it goes without saying that training in the wind tunnel would be better than failing a jump. But then you said you failed a couple of jumps, so I'm assuming it doesn't mean what I thought it meant.
There is a lot of dark humor in Sky. I will say that. Relative to the dangers of it, there were 3 million jumps made in 2024, I believe, and there were 10 deaths. So I was a Marine. I'm not good at math, but that's less
I'm
than.
a lawyer and I'm not good at math.
Okay,
There you
well,
go.
I think that's less than 1%. But as far as dark humor goes, we always say if you hit the ground really hard, make sure you grab the grass because it's not the impact that kills you, it's the bounce. So, but that's the dark humor we have. But other than that,
So what does it
yeah.
mean what does it actually mean to fail a jump? Meaning you're supposed to do something technical and you were unable to accomplish it or you didn't do it good enough.
Yeah, AFF is it's common for it to be very stressful for people because you have to go up there as a new jumper and you have things that you have to do. You have skills that you have to hit, whether that's maintaining a stable position, looking at your altimeter. You'd be surprised how hard that can be for some people. Like, hey, you need to look at your altimeter every 5 seconds or so and have altitude awareness. Some people get a deer in the headlights, but that's why they have 2 instructors there, right? Okay. Or being able to maintain a heading or do your turns or do some flips. It gets more fun as the longer you go. You build more confidence. But yeah, like on one of my category jumps, I spun out of control, right? And it was because I had that deer in the headlights and I wasn't doing what I was taught. Yeah, but you know what? Everything they taught me to save my life, I performed that, right? And it was okay. I just pulled my parachute. But yeah, it's a tough time, and if you fail, then you have to pay that extra $180 to $270 to repeat the jump. So in the long run, instead of failing multiple jumps, it's cheaper to put you in the tunnel and get you trained up. So fall is easy for you.
So how do you select people? How do they find you? Like, I don't know that. I mean, if you hadn't been watching a video and seeing what you saw, I don't know that you would have gone to skydiving as your way to get through the trauma that you'd been through. So, like, how does this come about?
So in exposure, people need to see and hear our stories. And I think that's very important for people to hear. We have the demographics we hit. We come from those backgrounds, a lot of us. A lot of skydivers come from those backgrounds and have come to jump because it gives them that that feeling of being present. Essentially, because of the social media, they can go to the website and I have a form for them to fill out, right, in the application area. And that kind of tells me some things, but because we're a smaller nonprofit, I have the means to get to know each candidate personally myself. And that's also how I vet them a little bit too. But we kind of work off of 3 pillars. And one of those for AFF is our most selective course. Because
And AFF stands for what again? Sorry.
accelerated free fall. Basically,
that's
your
right.
skydive school. We can call it that, right?
Okay.
And that's to pay for the entire thing, right?
So we pay for AFF, which is the first 7
There it
jumps,
is,
which is
that's
about
right.
70% of the cost. But for select individuals, depending on their financial situation and depending on if they show us the desire, we may pay for the whole thing. It just depends, It's so we tailor it to each person. But yeah, so we work off 3 pillars, which is urgency and need, right? That's the number 1. How critical is it for us to get this person into something that gives them purpose and community? Basically, to have an immediate intervention now with them, okay? And then We look at their financial situation, or we try and gauge it as best as we can without being too invasive.
Mhm.
All the information they give us is voluntary. We simply say, this will help your application. It's not going to deny you or confirm you, but it can help. So, do they have the financial capability to do this on their own or not?
Yeah.
Right? If that's the case, then it might change how we give them their scholarship, or so on and so forth. And then the next is capacity for excellence. We believe that people who come from trauma have built up a level of resilience, and they, just like how I came up, I need purpose in my life, and I care about helping people. And part of that is setting the example, right? So we want to put leaders into the sport of skydiving. So we have high standards for our students. Okay. If you're going to get a scholarship through Leaps of Hope, we want to make sure when you go out into the skydiving community that you're a leader on that drop zone. And it doesn't matter how new or old you are, you can be a leader at any level. I have seen new jumpers check older jumpers on things that everyone should be doing. And that's what we want to see, right?
Cool.
We want to make skydiving is becoming more and more professional as the years go on and as it evolves. And who knows where the sport's going to go. In 10 years, this might be an Olympic level spectated event at some point. You never know. But
Fingers
If
crossed,
you
man.
have anything to do with it,
Yeah. Yeah, right?
yeah, so I want to give back to the sport, and I want to give back to people, and this is a great way to make a hybrid of both. I can help these people, and I put them out into the sport, and maybe they might save someone's life because they're being a leader on the drop zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so when you
So
say urgency as one of the pillars, does that mean that the people that are going to be kind of priority for you guys are somebody that's in a similar situation that you were in back in Pittsburgh, where you get sent home from work, you're contemplating taking your own life, maybe you've had a close call, you reach out to someone in that circumstance and it happens to be you, and that's going to be a factor in determining whether or not you can work with them or get them in the air faster.
Yeah, it's a blank. It's hard to go about that as a general statement, because you have to measure whether or not someone's a danger to themselves or a danger to others
Mm-hmm.
as well. Now, taking care of these people is a high priority for me, but also the staff that are taking them out of that plane. I need to make sure that I'm putting them with someone that's also not going to do something that's going to put both of them in danger, right?
Gotcha.
And that just takes more conversation being had and kind of a risk mitigation of talking with the board, people who are experienced skydivers, and saying, how do we feel about this right now? Most of the time, I'll be honest, I haven't run into that yet,
Yeah.
and if they want to come out and do a skydive, and especially if they want to get their license, one thing that we're realizing is that there's every time they jump and pull their parachute, they're saying yes to saving their own life. That's very telling.
That's a cool statement.
Yeah, that's
Right?
very telling of what they want.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's when I start getting individuals who the way they're talking might seem a little iffy, like there's
Mm.
crude humor that veterans and us might have, but then there's like, hey, I need to
That's
know if
not
you're
funny.
actually going to do that when you
Yeah,
go up
that's
there,
not
because
funny.
if not, you're not going to get on the plane.
Yeah.
So safety is our number one priority always. Yeah, I haven't run into that yet. I will say one of the coolest things is I took this young kid, Alex, who's he's going to be in our AFF group, and he came from a rough upbringing. And he's a young kid, and he works a lot, and he doesn't have a big community. And I took him on his first skydive. And when he got down, I never saw him smile like that before. But also, he did something not many people do, and he stayed at the drop zone for an extra 6 hours and just hung out. We love that. If you're a tandem student and you sit and hang out with us, that's awesome. That's what we want. You don't have to leave. The drop zone's a community. We hang out and we talk afterwards, and we talk about our lives and the jumps and lessons we learned. And he sat there, and I looked at him after 6 hours of sitting there. I was like, how you feel right now, man? He goes, dude, I don't remember being this happy ever in my life. And I looked at my buddy Brandon, who's my mentor in skydiving. He's also part of the organization. And my Brandon was like, noted, there's something here,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah.
That's cool.
So real quick, Nathan, I just want to say that for all of you who've heard all of this, this is when Ross came in. If you can't imagine, I mean, when somebody is excited about this purpose, somebody who's so driven on service, how could we not try and help somebody out, right? To put something together like this. So when Ross had put all this together, he had invited me to go out. And I have to say to anybody who's out there, oftentimes with trauma, you'll think somebody has it worse. And I don't need help because it's not as bad as somebody who's going through something worse. And that's the real problem. So I would say, honestly, this is one of the things that helped to drive me to really want to help Ross. And then for myself, after I was able to do my jump, I was so surprised about how much I needed that. And so by all means, I would, if anybody out there who's listening, if it's gotten hard, this is a good option. That's so many better than so many other bad options out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great statement, Taylor.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely, bro.
Probably goes without saying that we're hearing some emotion in Taylor's voice. He's served our country. He's seen his share of trauma. So yeah, he definitely fits the demographic of the kind of people that Ross is looking for. And obviously it had an impact. So, and I haven't jumped yet. I'll say that there were a couple points where even though I was smiling, I was like, I had tears coming to my eyes. So such a cool story, Ross. Thanks for coming on and sharing with us today.
Thanks for taking the time.
I'm
brother.
glad
Thank
that,
you, man.
like I said, I'm glad that you found your calling. You found the meaning you needed to stay with us in this world because we need people like you. I'm also
Yeah.
glad that there's a business structure out there that promotes the kinds of things that you're doing and that can be, that can be crucial in helping you accomplish that mission. So I'm glad that the 501c3 structure is doing its job. It's helping you and it's helping you help other people.
Yeah. And so many people think that as soon as they set up an organization like this, they think, well, what's supposed to happen now? How does it actually functionally work? Does it work? Any of those types of things. That's one of the things that I love about Ross being here is that he's one of those who's actively making it work.
Yeah.
He's putting in the extra time. He's doing all those things to just see it all come together. And that's the coolest thing for us because we understand the theory, help people put these things together, but it's really guys who have their, boots on the ground, actually putting it to work. They're the ones who see the real benefits of doing this and seeing the community grow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Hey, just tell us real quick before we close up, Ross, where does the majority of your funding come from? How do you solicit it? And how can people donate?
So the skydiving community is very supportive of us, and also friends and their families and so on and so forth. A large majority of our funding comes from donations and like things that I'll do on Instagram, like an Instagram fundraiser that'll go to PayPal or the PayPal Giving Fund. And then that gets connected to the bank account, so on and so forth. We have had a few prominent people speak up for us and get us some funding from places like Cracker Barrel. Jericho Denman did that for us. He's a well-known veteran in the veteran community. He got us $5,000 from Cracker Barrel, but just a lot of they range from airline pilots to doctors to maintenance engineers to you name it, so they're supportive. We go all over the country now and people they don't know me, but they know Leaps of Hope. But really what we want to do is I'm learning a lot and I want to solidify annual funding with a few companies because if I could get dollars annually a year guaranteed, I could help a lot of people with that, a lot of people. And then we're also going to start applying for some grants here soon, and I'm going to start, I'm learning more. So the more I learn, the more serious I can get because there's multiple avenues that I can go down now. So, but most of our donations are from private entities, people, or maybe a couple companies, but yeah.
Right to the website. They just go to that leapsofhope.org and they're able to donate right there.
You can go to leapsofhope.org and you'll see in the top right, it says donate now. And there's a lot of other information on there. You can follow us on Instagram, Leaps of Hope, and you can follow us on Facebook, Leaps of Hope. And we're very active on Instagram and Facebook, and our retreat's coming up. This is our first annual retreat, and this is going to be big. We're going to have a documentary made after this. We are looking for some veteran-owned business sponsors and other businesses that want to sponsor us, but we're going to be helping some people here. We would like to license 6 people this year. We're going to get 3 at this retreat, and then we have another 3 in mind for the rest of the year. Yeah, what's 6 times? So around $20,000. Yeah,
Awesome.
like around
Yeah,
there.
and what I love about your story is, I think people think, oh, I have to have this, and you touched on this, but I think some people think, oh, I have to have this massive organization. I have to have all kinds of donors lined up ahead of time. I have to have, I can't, but you're a perfect example of starting small and just growing organically, kind of picking a niche community and relying on them for the early stages of the funding. I mean, I think that over time, that's going to just get bigger and bigger. But I love that your story is that you started small and you're going places. So, hey, thanks so much again for joining us. Thanks for what you do. Taylor,
Thank you for having me.
being the kind of an attorney that would attract somebody like Ross and get him to work with us, because we're super privileged to have Ross and his organization as a client. Thanks everybody for joining us for this episode. We hope you got something useful out of this, and there was a lot to be had. So share this episode with anybody that you feel like could use it.
Yeah,
thanks,
absolutely.
Taylor. Thanks, Ross. We'll
Thanks
catch
so much,
you
Nathan.
next one.
Yep.
Thank you for
See
having me.
everybody.
Have a good one, guys.
You've been listening to Legacy Lawyers with Michael Haslam and Nathan Croxford. We give you the juicy detail of cases that our law firm has dealt with. We take out the lawyer talk and legalese and show you what options some of our clients had to choose from to fix their situation. The effects of not doing planning can be devastating. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hook up with us on Facebook and Instagram at Voyant Legal. Call us at 801-951-0500 or send us an email at team@voyantlegal.com. And for commonly asked questions, hit voyantlegal.com/resources. We'll see you next time.